Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Sports Night TN on the Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Network. I'm Chris Yao, along with Maurice, Patton. Today, we are joined by the voice of the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders, Chip Walters. Welcome, Chip. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate the opportunity today, and the countdown continues. We're under 90 days for college football, I guess.
I guess it depends on where we're counting down to.
I'm counting September 5th. So,
okay.
Well, I'm told not to.
I understand. Appreciate you joining us, Chip. I guess one of the first questions I would have for a college athletics play-by-play announcer, what has this last 3 months or so been like for you? I mean, you didn't get to do the Conference USA basketball tournament, which I don't think MTSU qualified for, and we won't talk too much about that anyway. But, I mean, no baseball.
We've got a bright future.
Yeah, there we go. How much baseball did you get to do?
Typically, I don't do a lot of baseball. I'll do a little bit. Dick Palmer normally handles most of baseball. I work in real estate as well, and so I typically will, even when I was working in corporate sponsorship sales for Learfield, I would, as soon as basketball was over, I would kind of dive back into that, and would still do some baseball games here and there. This year, actually for the last three seasons, we've had a great fill-in announcer for when we have the crossover between basketball and baseball, and that would be Bob Jameson, the longtime voice of the Nashville Sounds. He and his wife moved back to Murfreesboro about 3 years ago, and Bob stepped in, and it's been great because you can turn here. You got a guy with big league experience, and he's handling the first 20 or so games. I think Dick may have done one or two baseball games before it all shut down. Bob and his wife were actually driving to Jackson, Mississippi, following the baseball team because they were playing Louisiana Tech, getting ready to play Louisiana Tech in Jackson when the call came to turn around and come home. And so it has been weird not being at the ballpark on Tuesday or Wednesdays and then on weekends. And, right now we'd already know what, I guess we'd be finishing up some regionals today, wouldn't we? Isn't that
close?
Right?
Yeah, that sounds about right because, we'd have 2 weekends ago, we'd have had the SEC tournament. And so, this would be supers. Okay.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. It's been a crazy spring to say the least. So, what have you found yourself doing?
Well, not a lot on the sports side. It's been, you can watch a lot of the old games and that kind of thing, and enjoyed a lot of it. Really enjoyed the Michael Jordan documentary, but it's you want that physical touch and to be able the smells of at the ballpark and that kind of thing. Really missed the NCAA tournament. One of the things we did here because we do over 200 broadcasts a year when you on the Blue Raider Network, when you think about football, men's basketball, women's basketball, coaches shows for those three sports, and baseball games. So we put together a series of old, classic games that we aired here. I mean, going all the way back to the 1982 Kentucky game. We had a good bit of that broadcast, but we aired the Michigan State game. We aired the Minnesota game in the NCAA tournament, several women's games, including the big triple overtime game with Western this year. That became an instant classic. Several bowl football wins. And there's more if we need it. But hopefully we'll be doing some live stuff, of course, starting Labor Day weekend. That's the plan.
That sounds great. We're visiting with MTSU play-by-play announcer and Columbia Central graduate Chip Walters. Chip, I talk to people all the time about you and how you got your start doing play-by-play at Columbia Central as a student. I'm not sure that career path is necessarily open to very many kids these days for a number of reasons. But for one, just I'm not sure that there are too many kids with that industriousness. What was it that let you know at that age that this was something that you wanted to pursue?
Well, think about the time. You and I are pretty close to the same age. We're talking 1979, I guess, right in there. And that was a time where we didn't have cable television. If you wanted to listen, if you wanted to keep up with things, you listened on the radio. And you didn't have podcasts like these. You didn't have, XM radio. What you had was a transistor radio by your bed that when it got dark, you could hear everything from KDKA in Pittsburgh, listening to the Pirates, all the way, across the Midwest, throughout the Southeast and down into Texas. And I remember listening to WBAP out of Dallas, and I could hear Rangers games from there. So, any spot in between, whether it was the Reds, the Cardinals, the Braves, all the way across, that's that being able to lay in bed at night and hear those great announcers call the games, and had me as a teenager thinking, man, they get to go to all the games and get to tell people about it. Well, that one thing kind of led to the other. And really, going back to when I was 15 years old, I started listening to this and, listening to games. Milo Hamilton in Atlanta was one of my favorites. Of course, Jack Buck and the Reds crew. But, that kind of got me excited about the possibility. At the same time, right about that time when I was 15 years old, the Sounds came, and they put their network together, which you probably listened on in Franklin. Growing up, I was starting to listen on WKRM in Columbia and WKOM, and somehow, I guess through a friend of mine named Neil Blair, who I was a high school classmate with, he said, we're looking for some people to run the board for Sounds games. And so, I didn't even have my driver's license yet. And I think I had a pulse and blood pressure. So that qualified me for the job at that point. But just tried to learn as much as I could. My Uncle Donnie, prior to that, he used to do the PA for all the games, whether it was Whitthorne or Central out at the stadium. And I would sit in and help him. I would spot for him. And I remember one night during a Whitthorne game, he just kind of handed me the mic and said, "You do the second half." And that kind of, kind of a little baptism there. But, all of that. And when you were at the radio station, not only was I listening to Sounds games and learning about that, but, we also carried Tennessee and Vandy games, and also the old Pick of Dixie games on Saturday night. And so that exposed me to not only Paul Eels from Vandy, who was one of my all-time favorites, and John Ward, who became a really good friend later on in life, and gave me some inspiration along the way. But you would hear on those Pick a Dixie games, you would hear all the announcers from across the South. From Florida to LSU, you'd get K Wood on the Kentucky games and all that. But just exposed to a lot of great radio announcers, and that that's I'm sure I've never tried to invent the wheel, but I've always been a pretty good thief to take a little bit from each one of those to try to create something of my own.
once again, Chip Walters, the play-by-play man for MTSU. And Chip, it's really cool. Conference USA has kind of seen some ups and downs, especially since the thievery from the American Conference.
Yeah.
But when you think back and you look at the future of Conference USA, especially in football, with the recent success of UAB and Middle Tennessee, but with coronavirus and that sort of thing, there's been a lot of talk about the potential of a split in the conference. Do you think that's something that might be in the works?
I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. Every so often you will see an article or something, but really what you have two conferences in Conference USA and the Sun Belt, and you could probably, you throw in the American as well, but really for the purposes of what most of this discussion has been about, has been with, talking about Conference USA and the Sun Belt, which they pretty much occupy the same footprint. Conference USA's is a little bit larger when you think about it, stretching from El Paso, Texas to Norfolk, Virginia, down to Miami, and all the points that are in between there. And so the Sun Belt is basically from Arlington, Texas, to Appalachian State, down into Florida or South Georgia and Florida and across. So there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of people say that it makes a lot of sense to basically put them both together, then redivide where things are more regional. Is there a possibility? Well, in the world of college athletics, you never say never. There are always there's a lot of pride and egos involved on both sides. Who is, if that was to happen, who is going to take the lead and make it happen other than sports writers? I'm not sure. But I do think one thing will come out of this at the very least, and that is, if there is not a full-blown merger or whatever you'd like to call it, I do think there will be some regional non-conference scheduling coming out of it in the short term, because Conference USA announced last week their formats for all sports, which in football did not change at all for this year. Still an 8-game conference schedule. In basketball, still an 18-game conference schedule, but they cut down the number of teams that were going to the postseason tournament. Now, other sports, baseball in particular, since we are in what would be college baseball postseason right now, Conference USA is going from 33 conference games to 24. That is 11 series down to 8, which means you're going to have to come up with 9 more non-conference games. Chris Massaro, in the case of Middle Tennessee, has already stated that as this started out, and there were talks about the contraction of some conference games in certain sports, had already put out the call to other athletic directors in the mid-state area, whether those in Nashville or, everywhere from, basically the entire state of Tennessee. Because if you're going to be looking for more conference games or non-conference games that you can bus to, why not look in your own backyard? And I think
Tennessee's got several.
Yeah. You go everywhere from, it's changed now, but Tennessee was one of the biggest states as far as Division I basketball, and baseball is concerned. Everything now from, East Tennessee to Chattanooga to Tech to Austin Peay, TSU, Lipscomb and Belmont, Middle, all the way to UT Martin and Memphis. And so there's a lot of schools there that you can have games with or events with, whether it's stick and ball or the Olympic sports. Conference USA will not be having regular season tennis matches. It will be you will play a postseason tournament, and you'll play and I'm not sure how they would do any seeding that way, but that's what they're looking at, certain things like that. And they put a full report out on their website. So kind of a long answer to a short question is I think that you're going to see the Sun Belt doing very similar things, which I think makes it prime for those two leagues to schedule more non-conference games in the short term with each other. And who knows what the big picture might hold later on down the road, because they are. I mean, when you think about, okay, UAB and Troy, or UAB and South Alabama, us, same deal with us. And then you throw in the OVC schools and, whether they're in Tennessee, Kentucky, or Alabama. So there's a lot of opportunities there to augment what you're doing scheduling wise.
Just looking Conference USA Sun Belt, I made the comment on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. As an MTSU alumnus, I think I would rather see MTSU playing a Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Coastal Carolina than I would to see them playing Texas El Paso, Texas San Antonio, and Rice. There's a lot to that, and there, a lot of people feel the same way, and the folks, who, you think about all the schools in those leagues, in both leagues that are in Texas, what do they have rivalry wise with Old Dominion, FIU and FAU? So exactly,
that conversation can be had from whatever your geographic platform might be. But we'll see what the powers that be. We're having a webinar of our own on Wednesday with the second one of these titled "Moving Forward with Football." It will be Coach Rick Stockstill will be on there again. Chris Massaro is on there. So and also Merton Hanks, who is the former defensive back for the 49ers, who is an associate commissioner in the Conference USA office and handles football. He'll be on there too. So, I mean, I'm sure that question will probably come up to him to address from a conference level. So we would invite anybody that'd like to be part of that. You on GoBlueRaiders.com, there's a link, just like you sent me, where you can go on into this webinar. You can't you can post questions that I will then address to the panelists. So, but we had a ton of participation when we did it 3 weeks ago. So that's kind of what the plan is about every 3 weeks leading up to football season, having one of these, and we'll do it at noon on Wednesday.
Merton Hanks, would he and Don Griffin have been teammates?
No, I think they just missed each other. I think Merton is just a little bit younger. Don is a couple of years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I was out of college, he was already playing for the 49ers. And I think Merton came in right after Don. They may have crossed over a little bit, but I'm not sure. That's on my list of questions for sure with Merton, because we do have that obvious connection with the great Don Griffin.
We're here again with MTSU play-by-play announcer, Columbia Central graduate Chip Walters. Chip, do you get back over this way very much? I know it's not that far, but at the same time, you're an awfully busy guy.
Well, I like to get back over that way a good bit. I was down Memorial Day weekend and for a little bit, and still have lots of connections from. I graduated from Central in 1981, and we had we had a really, really good senior class. And we had a great principal in Hardy Lloyd, who was a terrific leader at that school. And we've stayed very close over the years, and our reunions have been strong. Our friendships have remained strong. Matter of fact, yesterday afternoon, I got together with two of my high school classmates and one other gentleman here in Murfreesboro, and just four guys getting together and talking about the issues of the day, learning from each other, and so it was enlightening and a lot of fun. But it was kind of interesting that it all started with with a high school classmate from the class of '81.
You and Vance Ballou would have been classmates then, is that right?
That's correct. We were. Kat and I and his wife, Kat's wife, Paula. Paula and I rode the school bus together. So I go way back with her. And we actually got on the bus at the same stop, bus 32 in Murray County. And because we were right at the end. I lived out on Carter's Creek, and so did she. And the bus turned around at Harlan Road. And so we would have to drive down. Our parents would bring us down to meet the bus there to go to Columbia. Your parents brought you to the bus? I had to walk to the bus. Well, I mean, we lived about, I'm trying to think, I probably walked a few times, but Mom would carry us down because most of the time my sisters were with me, and it was about a quarter of a mile or so, and she'd make just to make sure we got on there safely, her little babies. That's awesome.
Mine would have had to make sure I was going.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, that's probably part of it as well. So just to make sure.
Sorry, Dad. You know he's listening. But it's been a pleasure, man. This is really cool. You know, we talk about each week. We get something unique every week, and Murray County has really produced some impressive citizens over the years, notable people, and you are certainly one of those, and we appreciate everything you've done for Middle Tennessee and everything. What if you could go back? What was one of your favorite moments from your high school radio broadcast days?
This one's easy.
All right.
Sub-state game, 1981. Brainerd came into Central with the opportunity to go to the state tournament. That team. Matter of fact, one of the folks I met with yesterday was George Dooley, who was a member of that basketball team. He was a senior on that team with Ricky Armstrong and Johnny Prim. Bert Bumpus was on that team. Jeff Dahl-Hansik, Keith Alville, and then there was a pretty good freshman by the name of Fred Jenkins, who was pretty good. The gym at Central was absolutely packed. At least
and
an hour.
Let me interrupt you just a second, because if you have been to a Central game in the last couple of years in the new Hardy Lloyd Gymnasium, you can't appreciate this story. You really can't, because that old gym, I was in there for some Franklin Columbia games back in about that same time frame. That place, it was hot, it was uncomfortable, and it was fantastic.
It really was, and the arched roof was so iconic. But anyway, Coach High brought his team in here, and boy, they were good. And the game started with Johnny Prim winning the toss, tipping it to Fred Jenkins for a dunk to start the game. The inbounds pass, then Fred stole it and hit what would have been a three-pointer, but there was no line on the floor. So within about 5 seconds, it's already 4-0, and Central went on to win by about 20 over a really good Brainerd team, and went on to play in the state tournament and had the luck of the draw in the first round to face Austin East. That had Gerald Hyatt that played at Tennessee, Rob Jones, and William Clinkscales, who went on to Ole Miss. So they were absolutely loaded for bear, that Austin East team was. And I think Columbia lost by 4. I think that's right. But that sub-state game and seeing that community come together, because, I mean, there was maybe I hope the fire marshal was on vacation or something, because it was absolutely, people were sitting on those. Remember, there were air handlers up on the 4 corners upstairs. Mm-hmm. People were sitting on those along that end zone where there were bleachers on that end. They were sitting on the concrete with their legs hanging off.
Over.
Yeah, it was great. It really was. And you're right, that building that gym was just fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing to look back over Columbia Central basketball, and you think about some of the teams that have come through there, and to realize that they've never won a state championship.
I know. Yeah,
It's just amazing, and like you said, the luck of the draw. You always manage to catch somebody who was another amazing team. But there have been some great teams, some great talent to come through here, and you've seen most of it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it. I mean, I was in elementary school when Lee Fowler played, and a couple of years later, Bernard Childress was on some really good teams. And I didn't see Batman Kelly play, but everything you hear about him was how talented he was in every sport that he played. But I have followed since the Fowler era on. And matter of fact, I used to, when Lee was the AD at Middle. Matter of fact, I got a text from him yesterday. But when he was the AD at Middle, I would continually remind him that when he was a senior at Central, I was in first grade at Riverside, and his mother was a first grade teacher over there. She wasn't. I didn't have her. She was not my first grade teacher, but I had Ms. West. But Lee would come over after school, and here he is. He was high school All-American basketball player, and for him to go out on the playground with us and shoot basketball or whatever, I mean he was a hometown hero for sure. But I would continually remind him that when he was a senior, I was just in first grade.
I'm sure he appreciated that.
He did, and still does.
Well, once again, thanks to Chip Walters for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and really excited, like you said. Hopefully the countdown to football season is on to September 5th, and if so, we will be listening for that call.
I hope so. I hope that I'm in Durham, North Carolina on Labor Day weekend for Middle and Duke, and then home games after that on the 12th, Indiana State here, and on the 19th, Virginia Tech is coming to Floyd Stadium. So we want hope that we're able to be able to let everybody come in and pack the place out for the Hokies. That'll be fun.
That would be fun. Tell Coach Cut we said hey.
Yeah, we'll do it if I get a chance to talk to him. Certainly do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again so much, and we appreciate it. Chip Walters, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chip.
I am joined now by Maurice Patton. Maurice, you are in your car right now because you have been running the roads all morning as high school football practice started in Murray County this morning, and that's it's been a big day.
Yeah, that's a big day, and as Chip was saying, that's another good sign that the countdown is on. Hopefully it's on for high school football as well as college football. But yeah, Columbia Academy and Zion Christian both started their workouts last Monday, Spring Hill, Mount Pleasant, and Columbia Central each started football workouts, and the rest of the Murray County Public Schools will open up their other sports workouts today as well. So big day, been a lot of anticipation and a lot of excitement, not just the athletes. We were able to visit with all three of those football coaches, Jason Hoth, Bronson Bradley, and Ben Martin, and got a little taste of what they've gone through here on the first day, and we will visit with them here later on.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure that you come back. I know today's Monday, and but on Wednesday we will publish a special edition podcast with those three interviews, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it's been like in getting Murray County sports going back since they decided to start back on June 8th. So that's a little bit different than what we first expected. We had heard some rumors here and there that it would be much later in the summer, but luckily we were able to get practice started, and these coaches and workouts, I know that the coaches are pumped up. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
Absolutely. You know, I think particularly with the vote of the TSSAA Legislative Council last Thursday to maintain the 2-week dead period here at the end of the month. It'll start up on June 22nd and go through the 4th of July. They will resume workouts on July 5th. So I think it was pretty well imperative for them to get going this week and to be able to work for 2 weeks before the dead period, as opposed to not getting any work in at all, which was, from what we were hearing, a distinct possibility.
Yeah, well, luckily that is not what happened. We did get to talk. Like I said, Maurice was able to talk to all three public school football coaches in Murray County today. So on Wednesday at noon, we will publish that podcast. You can find our podcast on Spotify, on Stitcher, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can you can hear it there. If you do get a chance and you are listening on one of those, please, especially Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give us a rating and make a comment. We don't care what the comment says. You can say,
yeah, we do.
You can say, well, it doesn't matter what the comment says as far as the algorithm is concerned. You can say pancakes are tasty. And that's great. We agree. Pancakes are tasty. And
pancakes are tasty.
See, you can write. It doesn't matter what the comment says. We would love for you to give us a glowing review, but 5 stars and any kind of comment will really help us drive us up the charts. We appreciate anybody who can help us, because we want to get, again, we just want this to be an informational purpose and to highlight the kids. Want to thank our first 2 sponsors. That's Columbia Academy and Custom Stone Handlers, both in Columbia. So thanks to them for sponsoring today's podcast and Wednesday's podcast. Really appreciate it. And like I said, on Wednesday at noon, we will publish a special edition podcast with Murray County Public Schools football coaches, Jason Hoth, Bronson Bradley, and Ben Martin. So there will be that. Maurice, I appreciate you getting out there. Make sure to check out Facebook Live tonight. We will be on Facebook Live tonight from Columbia American Little League. There'll be a special Facebook Live and Instagram Live broadcast there as opening day festivities begin at 5:30. And that will be really fun because live sports are back in Murray County.
Wow. Who'd have thunk?
30 days ago, you couldn't have paid me to tell you that was going to happen. But here we are, and I'm really excited about it. I know everyone else is too. So
I think they are, and you may want to get there early. As you said, opening night festivities start at 5:30, games at 6 and 7:30, and as you said, the first live sports in Murray County in nearly 3 months. It would not surprise me if that place is a madhouse. So you might want to get there early if you're going to go at all.
Absolutely, and come hungry, because there are going to be food trucks all out. Folks are, local food trucks are going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. I'm about to head down that way myself as soon as we get this podcast out. So we'll see you guys down there if you're coming. If not, once again, check out our Facebook page, SMTN Sports. Catch us on Twitter, SM_TN Sports. Also on Instagram, SM_TN Sports as well. The website, sm-tnsports.com. You can find local stories, updated, up to the minute information there. We've got exclusive sports stories from Murray County, so you're definitely and South Williamson County as well. Summit and Independence is included in that as well. So make sure if you have a chance, check out the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those places, and of course the podcast. So once again, for Maurice, Patton, I'm Chris Yao. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time.